Hello, my dear friends. I'm Mr. Sean Rabbit, and I'll tell you terrible stories. When Mary Dixon moved to Kingsville, Maine, she thought being alone would help her pull herself together. After the accident that killed her husband, and after a year of living in an apartment where the walls seemed to be soaked with his absence, she thought a change of scenery would be a relief. The new house, old, wooden, with peeling paint and creaky floors, wasn't perfect, but there was something appealing about it. Maybe the smell of pine, maybe the silence. The first night she didn't sleep. Not out of fear. It was just too quiet. The silence where there had once been snoring or clinking glasses kept her awake. She lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. For a moment she thought she heard someone walking on the second floor, though she was sure all the furniture remained on the first. The footsteps were slow, dragging, as if someone was dragging a foot. She wrote it off as mice or a raccoon. The locals said they crawled into attics. The next morning she bought traps. But it wasn't the mice. The dreams started on the third night. In them, the house looked different, older. The walls were darker, as if covered in soot, and the windows were boarded up from the inside. And every time she woke up, she felt that part of the dream had stayed with her. The smell of burning, the banging on the chimney, the shadow in the corner of the room. Little things like that could have been written off as fatigue. But she couldn't. On the fourth night, she woke up in the bathtub. The water was ice cold. She had no memory of being there. Her hand, her right hand, was scratched, as if she had tried to scratch something out from under the tiles. A circle had been drawn on the bathroom wall, with her finger in dust or soap. She hadn't drawn it. She'd never drawn anything like that. The dreams grew more intrusive each day. In one, she stood at a mirror and her reflection didn't move, just stared. In another, she was walking down a long hallway that wasn't in her house. The doors were ajar, and from each one, someone was quietly calling her name. The voice was male, Tom's voice. But Tom was dead. During the day, she began to notice that the reflections were acting strange, not in the mystical sense, but in little things. Turned around, and the mirror was a fraction of a second late. She wet her face. In the reflection, the water was already running off, as if time didn't exist there. At first, she'd convinced herself it was nerves, that her brain was just tired, but on the 8th day, the bathroom mirror cracked on its own. Mary was sitting on the toilet, and suddenly, click! A thin line ran across the glass. Like a crack in ice, her heart raced faster, but she remained seated, looking into the distorted but not disappearing reflection. She was not alone in the reflection. Behind her, over her left shoulder, stood a figure, tall, blurry, as if made of smoke. She turned around. No one. She looked in the mirror again, and the shadow was gone. From then on, she avoided looking in mirrors, pulled the curtains, turned off the lights. But she could still feel the gaze, especially in the bathroom, especially at night. One morning she woke up to the sound of water running. The faucet was open. She's sure she'd screwed it shut. The water was reddish. She called a plumber, but the man, after inspecting the pipes, only shrugged. It's all clear. Maybe rust. She didn't know how to tell him she'd heard whispering when she stood at the sink. Didn't know how to explain that the shadows under the bathroom door moved even when no one was in the room. On the 11th day, she stopped sleeping not even to try. Sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee after coffee, sometimes just staring at the wall. When she fell asleep for a few minutes, sitting up, lying down, whatever, she saw herself in the bathtub, saw herself reaching for the razor, saw the water red with blood, saw a hand come out of the mirror and take her shoulder. She started writing it all down. She kept a diary. Rereading it, she didn't remember writing half the entries. The style was different. The handwriting was slightly uneven, with a slant she'd never had before. One entry repeated over and over again, "They live in glass." On the 15th day, she tried to throw away all the mirrors. She broke them, took the shards out into garbage bags, took them to the dump. When she returned, she saw the mirror hanging in the bathroom again. Old, round, cracked, not hers. Never seen it before. But it hung firmly, as if it had always been there. And once again, there was more than one person in the reflection. It was more than just a shadow. It was moving. It looked and whispering. In a language she didn't know, but she understood, as if the words were in her blood. In the night, she wrote a suicide note. The paper was left blank. Whatever she wrote, the words disappeared. Only a wet trail of ink remained, like an insect trail. She went into the bathtub, filled it. The warm water was soothing. Took the blade, put it on the edge, closed her eyes. At that moment, the mirror cracked. Something came out of the crack, a thin black hand. It reached out, slowly, cautiously, as if it knew it was afraid. Mary didn't scream. She watched. The hand touched the water, and it immediately turned dark, as if ink had spilled over. The last thing she saw was her own face, only it wasn't hers, distorted, no eyes, no mouth, just an evil grin. It stared out of the mirror and moved when she was still. And then there was a sharp slam, as if a door had been closed with force. The house became quiet again. A week later, the police opened the house. Neighbors complained about the smell. Mary was found in the bathroom, veins open. The mirror was cracked but hanging. The water was black. On the wall above the bathtub was written in one word, "Inside," and no one noticed Mary's eyes open in the mirror.